She was insulted, she was mocked, she was shoved into the sea like garbage, all because she wore flip-flops and a simple dress. Not one hand was extended to help her. Not one staff member called for rescue. Not one guest, draped in designer suits and silk gowns, looked her in the eye as she gasped for breath, soaking wet and shaking. No one knew that the woman they had just humiliated was the only person on that dock with the true right to be there. No one knew she wasn't just a guest. She was the wife of the man who owned the entire ship. The Monaco Marina stretched out like a billionaire's playground, a shimmering crescent of turquoise water cradling yachts that gleamed under the late afternoon sun. Sleek hulls bobbed gently, their decks adorned with polished teak and glass railings, their names etched in gold, each one a floating testament to wealth beyond imagination. The Ether loomed largest of all, a 200-foot masterpiece of white steel and elegance, its 3 tiers rising like a wedding cake for the ultra-rich. Crystal chandeliers sparkled through its windows, a helipad crowned its top deck, and its bow cut the water with a quiet arrogance that whispered exclusivity. The air smelled of salt and champagne, the distant hum of engines mixing with the clink of glasses and the murmur of voices from the elite already aboard. Emma Grayson stepped onto the wooden dock, her flip-flops slapping softly against the planks, her plain cotton dress, a faded blue number she'd worn 100 times, fluttering in the warm breeze. A worn backpack hung from one shoulder, its straps frayed, its canvas stained from years of use. Inside, she'd tucked a sweater, a water bottle, and 2 ultra-exclusive tickets for the Ether, her 5th anniversary gift to Adrian, her husband. Her auburn hair was swept into a loose ponytail, strands escaping to frame her face, and her hazel eyes glowed with a quiet excitement. At 32, she was beautiful, graceful in a way that didn't need to shout, with a sharp mind and a heart that could move mountains. But her modesty cloaked it all, making her look like just another tourist wandering too close to the rich folks' turf. She'd spent weeks dreaming this up. Adrian had been in Berlin, buried in Stormtech meetings, his AI empire eating his days. And she wanted to pull him away, surprise him with something big. 5 years ago, they'd married in a courthouse with $20 rings, 2 broke dreamers betting on each other. Now those tickets, $500,000 each, were her way of saying, "Look how far we've come." She'd called him that morning, voice teasing over the crackly line, "Meet me in Monaco tonight." He'd chuckled, "What are you cooking up, Em?" She'd grinned, "You'll see." She figured it'd be simple. Show the tickets, board the yacht, wait for him under the stars. She didn't expect the crew to turn it into a public execution. It started at the gangway, a sleek ramp lined with velvet ropes leading up to the Ether's lower deck. A security guard, Tom Harris, broad-shouldered, buzz-cut, badge glinting under his black polo, blocked her path, his eyes raking over her like she'd tracked sand into his cathedral. "We don't allow flyer girls on this yacht," he sneered, his voice loud enough to make a deckhand, Jake, a wiry kid with a mop in hand, snicker from the rail. Emma adjusted her backpack, calm as ever. "I'm not a flyer girl. I'm here for the Ether. Here's my ticket." She pulled the gold-embossed paper from her bag, its holographic seal catching the light, and held it out. Tom didn't even glance, just smirked. "Nice try. That's fake. Step back." Before she could blink, Clara Weston swept in. Guest manager, all white blazer and red lipstick, her blonde hair pinned tight, her heels clicking like a judge's gavel. She sized Emma up, her lip curling. "Look at yourself," she scoffed, gesturing at the dress, the flip-flops. "Someone like you couldn't possibly afford Ether. Are you trying to fake your way in to seduce someone rich?" Jake laughed outright. "She's got the hustle." Guests on the deck, men in tailored tuxes, women in silk gowns sipping martinis, leaned over, staring. Emma held her ground, voice steady. "I'm not faking anything. This ticket's real. Check it." Clara snatched it, gave it a half-second glance, then tore it in half, letting the pieces flutter to the dock. "Oops," she said, smirking. "Must have slipped." Tom clapped, "Good one!" While a woman in pearls, Lila Carter, chuckled from the rail. "She's delusional." Emma's chest tightened, but she didn't snap, just reached into her bag for the second ticket. "I have another. Scan it, please." Clara's smirk twisted into a scowl. "You're embarrassing yourself," she hissed, grabbing it and tossing it into the wind, the paper spiraling toward the water like a dying bird. The crowd hooted, phones out, red lights blinking. "She's a total joke! Kick her off already!" A guy in a tux, Miles, slicked back hair, gold watch flashing, yelled, "She's wasting our time." The humiliation escalated fast. Tom stepped closer, his bulk looming, and shoved her shoulder hard, her flip-flops skidding on the dock. "Move it, now," he barked as Clara laughed. "She's ruining the vibe." Miles leaned over. "Dump her overboard, do it!" Jake grabbed his mop, dipped it in a bucket of gray water, and flung the dripping mess at her, the cold splash soaking her dress, running down her legs, pooling at her feet. "Clean yourself up, trash," he jeered, while Lila snapped a pic. "This'll go viral. Pathetic." Clara didn't let up. She grabbed a marker from her blazer pocket and scrawled "fake" across Emma's wet dress, the black ink bleeding into the fabric as she laughed. "Now it's official!" Tom hooted, "Tag her good," while Lila smirked, "She's a walking lie." The crowd cheered, phones zooming in on the smeared word, and Emma stood there, ink dripping with water, her backpack sagging, but she didn't flinch, just let the mark sit, her calm a fortress against their venom. Emma wiped her face, water stinging her eyes, her ponytail dripping, but she didn't flinch, just stood there, composed, her silence a wall against their venom. The guests jumped in like sharks. Lila tossed a half-empty champagne flute at Emma, the glass shattering at her feet, bubbles fizzing on the wood. "There's your welcome drink," she cackled as Miles laughed. "She's a walking disaster." Clara clapped. "Perfect, give her a send-off." Tom grabbed her backpack, ripped it open, and dumped it. Sweater, wallet, a photo of her and Adrian spilling onto the wet dock. "Let's see your millions," he sneered, kicking the photo into a puddle. Emma knelt to pick it up, her hand steady despite the sting, but Jake snatched it, tearing it in half. "No keepsakes for fakes," he said, tossing the pieces over the rail, the torn faces of her and Adrian sinking into the sea. Miles joined the fray. He grabbed a bottle of red wine from a guest's hand and poured it over Emma's head, the dark liquid staining her dress crimson as he sneered. "Dress up, sweetheart." Tom clapped. "She's vintage now," while Sophie hooted. "Blood suits her." The wine ran down her neck, pooling with the foam and water, and Emma blinked through the sting, her ponytail a soaked mess. But she didn't break, just stood there, her dignity a rock they couldn't shatter. More crew piled on. A bartender, Sophie, petite, with a tight bun and a tray of flutes, strode over, smirking. "You're clogging the dock," she said, and splashed a glass of ice water in Emma's face, the cubes sliding down her dress. "Cool off and scram," she laughed as Tom hooted. "She's a wet rag now." Sophie took it further. She snatched a tray of oysters from a passing server and dumped them over Emma's head, the slimy shells sliding down her dress as Sophie shrieked, "Eat that, you fraud!" Jake cackled, "She's a seafood special!" While Miles clapped, "Perfect! Feed the trash!" The stench hit hard, the crowd howling as Emma flinched from the cold muck, her hands steadying her bag, but she didn't snap, just wiped an oyster from her shoulder, her silence a shield they couldn't crack. A deckhand named Pete, tall, sunburned in a crew polo, grabbed a coil of rope and looped it around her backpack's spilled contents, dragging them toward the edge. "Trash goes overboard!" he yelled, kicking her sweater into the water. Pete escalated it. He yanked a fire extinguisher from the dock wall and sprayed Emma with white foam, the blast soaking her dress and face as he yelled, "Put out the garbage fire!" Clara laughed. "She's a cloud now," while the Pearl woman, Lila, snapped, "This is art!" Foam clung to her hair, her eyes burning, and Emma staggered back, her flip-flops slipping, but she didn't cry, just steadied herself, her quiet strength a flame they couldn't douse. Emma reached for her wallet, but Sophie stomped it into a puddle. "No cash here, honey?" The crowd roared, phones filming, voices jeering. "She's a nobody! Sink her already!" Clara orchestrated the finale. "She's done," she said, nodding at Tom. He gripped her arm, his fingers bruising, and yanked her toward the dock's end, her flip-flops slipping off, one tumbling into the sea. "You're out," he growled as Pete laughed. "Bye-bye, flyer girl." Miles tossed a coin at her. "Here's your fare home." Lila capped it off. She snatched a flare gun from a safety kit on the dock and fired it inches from Emma's feet, the bright orange spark sizzling into the water as she screamed, "Light up and leave!" Clara cheered, "Fireworks for the fraud!" while Pete laughed. "She's a signal now." The heat singed Emma's legs, her dress smoking at the hem, and she stepped back, her flip-flop melting, but she didn't scream, just faced them, her hazel eyes hard, her composure a sword they couldn't blunt. And Lila clapped, "Perfect exit!" Tom gave one hard shove, and Emma fell, off the dock, into the dark, cold water, the salt swallowing her dress, her backpack sinking beside her. She hit the surface with a splash, gasping, her arms flailing for a moment before she steadied herself. The crowd erupted, cheers, laughter, phones zooming in. "Sink! Nobody!" "Good riddance," Clara smirked, back to the gutter, and turned away. The music swelled, violins, a pulsing DJ beat, and glasses clinked like she'd never been there. Emma treaded water, her ponytail plastered to her neck, her dress a heavy shroud, but she didn't scream, just swam toward a buoy 50 yards out, her strokes strong, her hazel eyes hard with resolve. The ether's lights glittered above, the party rolling on, guests dancing, crew joking, no one glancing at the sea. She reached the buoy, clinging to its slimy surface, her breath fogging in the cooling night air. Hours passed, her fingers pruned, her body shivered, but she didn't panic. She'd faced worse than this, and it wasn't about her pride. It was about Adrian, about the life they'd built, about every soul judged by their shell. Night deepened over Monaco, the marina's glow fading to a distant hum. Emma hung on, her dress sodden, her teeth chattering until a lantern's beam cut the dark. A fisherman's boat, old Nico at the helm, his grizzled face creased with concern. "Hey, you okay?" he called, tossing a rope. She grabbed it, pulling herself aboard, trembling but calm. "Not really," she said, voice steady despite the cold. He draped a wool blanket over her. "What happened?" She told him, quiet, no tears, about the tickets, the shove, the laughs. Nico's jaw tightened. "Animals. You got someone?" She nodded, pulling her soaked phone from her pocket. "Dead." "My husband," she said. "He'll come." Nico handed her his battered Nokia. "Use it." She dialed Adrian. "It's me. I'm okay. Sort of." His voice sharpened. "Where are you?" She told him. "Fisherman's boat. They threw me off the Aether." Silence, then. "I'm there in 3 hours." Morning shattered the calm. A black helicopter roared over the marina, blades slicing the sky, landing on a pad near the dock as international press swarmed, cameras flashing, mics thrusting, reporters shouting. Adrian Storm stepped out, tall, 38, dark hair neat, gray suit crisp, blue eyes cold as steel. Behind him, Emma, still in her damp dress, flip-flops gone, hair a wet tangle but standing tall, unshaken. He held her hand, his grip firm, her strength quiet. The press buzzed. "Who's she?" "Stormtech's CEO. What's this?" Adrian didn't smile, just led her to the Ether's gangway, where the crew froze, their faces draining white. Tom gaped, "Sir?" Clara rushed forward, her blazer pristine. "Mr. Storm, welcome aboard." Adrian cut her off, voice low, lethal. "This woman isn't just my wife. She helped me build Stormtech from nothing. She's the real architect behind everything I own. And yesterday you tried to kill her." The deck went dead silent. Jake dropped his mop. Sophie's tray clattered, Pete's rope slipped, Lila's glass trembled, Miles paled. Adrian's gaze swept them. "We started with zero. 2 kids in a dorm, no cash, no sleep. I coded the hardware. She cracked the AI. Every system you use, every dollar I've made, her mind's in it. And you," he pointed at Tom, Clara, Jake, Sophie, Pete, "threw her into the sea." Here's the first twist that hit like a tidal wave. Emma wasn't just his wife. She founded Storm Child Relief, a global lifeline for orphaned kids. Before Stormtech took off, she'd sketched it on napkins, schools, shelters, clinics, then poured billions into it, all in shadows while the world chased trends. The Ether, her creation, its interiors, its security systems, every bolt and beam hers. Tom's badge, Clara's heels, Jake's mop, Sophie's tray, Pete's polo, paid by her work. They'd mocked the woman who'd built their world. And then the second twist crashed down. That night's party wasn't just a billionaire bash, it was a secret summit for a $500 million relief fund. Emma's vision to flood orphanages with resources. She'd designed the rotating charity auctions. Monaco tonight, Dubai next. Every cent her plan. The guests, billionaires, CEOs, philanthropists, were there to vote. Clueless, she'd invited them. Clueless, she'd shaped the yacht they stood on. They'd laughed at the woman who'd called them there. Adrian led her aboard, past the stunned crew, up the spiral stairs to the main deck. The crowd parted, silk gowns rustling, tuxes stiffening, eyes wide. Emma stepped to a mic, still dripping, no makeup, no jewels, just her dress and a soaked sheet of paper from her pocket. She held it up. Luxury is not what you wear, it's what you give. The room froze. A woman in diamonds, Ellen, sniffled. A man in a bow tie. Charles wiped his eyes. Guests rose, clapping slow, then thunderous, a tide of awe washing over the deck. Tom's hands shook. Clara's smirk died. Jake stared at the floor. Sophie's bun sagged. Pete's sunburn darkened. Lila's sequins dulled. Miles's watch stopped flashing. Adrian stood beside her, silent, his pride a fortress. He turned to the crew, voice slicing. "You don't leave. You learn. Today." Tom's badge was a joke now. His shove a chain. He'd pushed the woman whose vision paid his rent, and sweat poured as he hauled chairs for her kids, his pride drowning in their smiles. Clara's blazer hung limp, her marker a noose. She'd defaced the mind behind their paychecks, her heels clicking nowhere as she stacked tables under Emma's gaze. Jake's mop was his mirror, his splash a scar. He'd soaked the architect of their world, his hands raw from scrubbing her deck. Sophie's tray trembled, her oysters await. She'd fed filth to the heart of their funds, her bun unraveling as she served. Pete's rope coiled tight, his foam a ghost. He'd sprayed the soul of their ship, his sunburn darkening with shame. Lila's pearls were gone, her flare a burn. She'd lit up the woman who lit their lives, her sequins dull as the crowd's applause buried them. Emma's quiet triumph a gavel they couldn't dodge. Tom stammered, "We didn't." Adrian raised a hand. "You did. Now you work her deck, her rules." By noon, Tom hauled chairs for a kids' event below deck, his badge swapped for a volunteer tag, sweat soaking his polo, his shove a ghost. Clara stacked tables, her heels traded for flats, her red lips pale, her toss a memory. Jake scrubbed floors, his mop a bitter echo, hands raw from the work he'd mocked. Sophie poured water for staff, her tray gone, her splash a weight. Pete coiled ropes, his polo stained, his drag a lesson. Lila served coffee, her gown swapped for a smock, her flute a regret. Emma walked past, calm. "It's not about you, it's about them." Nodding at the kids' photos lining the walls, orphans her fund would lift. They didn't reply, just worked. Eyes down, shame a heavy anchor. 2 weeks later, the Aether sailed on, its decks quieter, its air humbler. Tom greeted a dock worker in sandals like a king. "Welcome aboard? Need a hand?" His voice was soft, his shove a scar he'd spent nights replaying. Clara offered a shy smile to a guest in cargo shorts. "Anything you need, sir?" Her blazer folded away, her scorn a lesson she'd learned stacking tables with kids who didn't care about her heels. Jake mentored a teen volunteer. "Respect's free. Give it." His mop days a humbling echo, his hands steady now. Sophie refilled water for a crew meeting. "Here you go." Her splash a memory she'd apologized for, tears in her eyes, to Emma's nod. Pete tied knots with a fisherman's son. Like this, his drag a weight he'd shed hauling supplies. Lila donated her pearls to the next auction. For the kids, her voice soft, her flute a choice she'd undone. The summit raised $600 million, Emma's fund, her triumph. A viral clip, billionaire's wife thrown off yacht she owns, hit 20 million views in days, their shame a global mirror. Guests who'd jeered sent letters, Ellen's tear-stained, Charles's brief. "We were wrong." The crew wore volunteer tags at every port, their hands busy, their eyes low. Emma stood by the rail one night, Adrian's arm around her, the sea stretching endless before them. "Worth it?" he asked, his voice a whisper. She nodded. Always. Her dress fluttered, her strength glowed, and the yacht hummed, hers, from bow to stern, a testament to what she'd given. This story's about seeing past the glitter, about a woman who turned cruelty into a wake-up call. If it hit you, smash that like, share it wide, drop a comment. Have you ever been judged for how you look? Tell us your truth, and subscribe for more stories that cut deep and lift higher.